Every service member knows what a patrol is. You step off with your people, you carry the weight together, and no one gets left behind. But what happens when the final patrol comes and there's no one left walking beside you? Today, we're sitting down with the founder of Veterans Last Patrol, a retired Army colonel who looked at that question and refused to accept the answer. This isn't about death. This is about dignity. This is about brotherhood. And this is about making damn sure that no veteran walks their last patrol alone. Before Veterans Last Patrol was an organization, there was a moment. What did you see, hear, experience that made you realize this is unacceptable? I have to do something about this.
Well, I started volunteering myself for veterans and hospice care, and we can go into that story about why that was when you're ready. But most importantly, I found out that there are a lot of lonely veterans in care facilities that were in hospice care, what we call the last patrol, and they were largely alone. They didn't have fellow veterans visiting them. They'd basically fallen out of the veterans community, and so that really bothered me. I said, look, we patrol together on active duty and reserve component wherever you were. We understand patrolling, and someone shouldn't go into end of life care, especially a veteran, without someone nearby. So we call the last patrol for that reason.
Any guess or question? Because we're all a very tight brotherhood of brothers and sisters. Why do people go into end of life alone? Is it they slip through the cracks? Do you have any guess as to why that is?
That's a really important question. I've asked myself that many times, and I think partly it's because people don't really understand the end of life process. Many folks have had no or little experience with hospice care. They don't really understand what that means. They may think that everybody dies right away, but that's not true. A lot of times it's a process. It takes months and sometimes more than a month. And so I think it's largely because of lack of knowledge about the way the system works, and then also probably not enough understanding about how to get involved if there are opportunities like this. And I will say that we don't only serve veterans that are fully alone. There are some, and surprisingly a large number, that are fully alone. But any veteran, regardless of whether they have family or not, we want them to have a veteran nearby because they may have family, but no more veterans nearby. And we want to keep the veteran community in that picture through their last patrol.
That's I think that yeah, into answering your question as you did, whenever I met some fellows from your organization down here in Boca, I'd never heard of Veterans Last Patrol before, and yeah, I mean, it is kind of like it's just something you don't think about.
People don't think about it. And also, quite frankly, even veterans, we tend to, even if we've been exposed to it significantly in our duties, we kind of shy away. It's a natural human impulse to kind of shy away from death. So you don't really want to be involved with it unless you have to. And even those, when you have to, let's say a family member, it's a little bit sad that quite frequently even family members step out of the picture when a loved one goes into end of life care. So, what appealed to me was trying to get the veterans community involved, because we have this brotherhood, we have this bond, and I think if we know about these situations and realize the impact that can make on a veteran's life to see the community get back in to see them, before they pass away and honor them one more time, perhaps before they pass away, that it resonates with veterans. And that's where we're going with that, is try to get more attention to that cause.
Yeah, and it made sense to me when I first heard about it. It kind of clicked, and as I've told people, and correct me if I'm wrong or off base here, I will ask you what a ceremony looks like. But for me, I grew up Catholic, so I thought like last rites. Like whenever it's that time, you have the priest come in, do his holy water thing. And so, what is that kind of? Obviously, y'all do a ceremony. Do you want to share with us the ceremony and what that exactly looks like whenever you go see veterans?
Yes, let me start by just maybe recapping the three parts of the mission. So we have Befriend, which are bringing one-on-one visitors as a friend, as a companion, as a battle buddy to a veteran in hospice care. Secondly, we have this honor ceremony component. And then thirdly, we have the support missions. Sometimes there's something unusual that happens late in life that we try to help with. It could be a last wish, it could be some kind of financial issue. So we have those three elements of our mission: befriend, honor, and support. Now, to your specific question, Mike, the ceremonies that we call honor ceremony, they vary a little bit depending on the location and who all can be involved. It could be just a single veteran that goes and visits and presents a few patriotic gifts, a certificate, some handcrafts, maybe a letter from Congress, just some nice patriotic gifts to the veteran before they pass away. It's a little bit different from last rites, although we do that too, in that we prefer to get to the veteran while they're still conscious,
Sure.
why they can still understand, why they can smile at you one more time. But if they're unconscious, we'll still do them if we can. It's just a little bit of a different type of ceremony. These can be done with single individuals. They can also be done with groups. For example, in our headquarters region, which is in South Carolina, we have some parts of the state where we can get, 8, 10, 12 people, veterans, that will show up to a ceremony like this. And then we incorporate a little bit more into it. We may have a history of the U.S. flag. We may have some readings of what it means to be a veteran, why somebody has served. So the ceremonies then become a little bit more elaborate if you have a team available to do that. But that's not mandatory. The most important thing in our view is a single person just showing that bond, that brotherhood one more time to the veteran when he's on his deathbed, in a way that both of them appreciate it, because the volunteers really appreciate it too. A lot of times they tell us, look, I'm getting more out of this than I think I'm giving.
Yeah, that volunteering, especially for anybody that's kind of going through hard times, it's interesting because we talk about, is anything actually really truly altruistic? Because when you volunteer, whatever it may be, you do get a lot out of it. And for
Absolutely.
people that are going through depression, it's a good thing to get involved with, is to find a way to get with an organization where you can give, and you get back out of it also.
Yeah, I like that.
Talking,
I like that. People say that the best way to help yourself is to help others. And that's very true, I think, of what we're doing. We're a volunteer organization. We seek volunteers around the country, wherever someone may live, a small community, big city, West Coast, East Coast, wherever. Hospice takes place all across the nation in communities of any size in any place. It's usually about 50% of hospice care takes place in the private home. So the veteran is still living in their private home. That's where the care will be taking place. But the other 50% or so would be in a senior care facility, maybe a skilled care facility, assisted care facility, nursing homes, places like that are all across the country. And of course, some are in VA facilities, but the VA only gets a pretty small portion of that.
so you'd made a mention about all the individuals that you've spent time with, especially even before the organization when you volunteered with hospice, and all the time that you spent with these men and women that are at the end of the road. Like, do they talk about battles, rank, medals, or what do they like to talk about the most? What's their kind of end of life stories they share?
I'm glad you asked that question, because a lot of times people think these conversations are depressing because they're dying. But they really talk to you about anything and everything. I mean, I remember one of my earliest hospice cases. He was a World War II veteran. This was up in Philadelphia. He was a really nice guy, and he laughed easily. Uh, but he had lost his wife a few years before I met him, and but he was still in great love with his wife, and so he always wanted to talk about her. And he talked about the first date they went on and where they went. He talked about the first kiss and how long that kiss was in the back of the car. And he talked about meeting her family. So they'll talk to you about anything and everything. Of course, it's veteran. If it is veteran to veteran, and by the way, we do take volunteers that aren't veterans. We have volunteers that are just big supporters of veterans and family members of veterans. But especially if it is another veteran, of course, you may touch on your military experience. And the interesting thing, it doesn't matter whether you were Korea War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, whatever it is. there's a lot of commonality. You still got the same BS that takes place in the military. You still got the good guys and the bad guys. You still got the great leaders and the poor leaders. So all those kind of things happen, throughout all branches of service, throughout all wars, and not just wars. I mean, obviously, a number of veterans that we're dealing with are not war veterans. Doesn't matter to us. We will serve anybody that served. And but they'll, to recap that, they'll talk to you about anything and everything. And you sometimes do a lot more listening than you do speaking. Another interesting thing is many times, veterans tend to be kind of taciturn. They don't necessarily talk that much, especially about their experiences, especially not to other veterans, but even to them, a lot of times, or to family members, they don't talk that much. But when someone gets an end of life care, we've found that they open up more than maybe they ever did before because they realize it's kind of the last chance to share a story, maybe last chance to pass on a lesson. And they really appreciate that, a stranger has come into their life and is interested in their story.
Kind of reminds me of what Steve McLeod said when he was talking about if you want to get good stories out of these guys and you don't know where to start, ask them about the guys they served with. Ask them about their buddies.
Yeah.
We all love talking about those kinds of stories and things that we did and the antics that we got into. And like you said, yeah, it doesn't take war for us to get into shenanigans, so to speak.
Definitely not. And most people haven't served in war, certainly combat, where they still wore the uniform and they still did their duty. And yes, those kind of things are common. People remember folks they served with, who they went to basic training with, or who their first, NCO was or whatever. And they may haven't seen that person for 50, 60 years, but they still remember them, and they can still talk about it.
Now, with you, so you retired from the Army as a colonel.
Yes.
What was your motivation getting into the military? Did you go straight officer, enlist first? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background and your experience in the Army?
Yeah, I went to ROTC in college, so I was commissioned from college, and I think I was inspired by a lot of young people and admired military service and some of the great heroes of the time and of history, and so I felt like I wanted to have a piece of that and be part of that. So I tried to do that, and I served for 31 years and enjoyed every minute of it. Most importantly, the people. There's just so many good people in the military, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a wonderful place or in a shithole. The people are still good people, and you enjoy being with them for that reason. So, of course, some are not good, but a lot of very good people, and the camaraderie sticks with you. You remember that once you've been out of the service. I got out in 2013, so it's been a while now, but I still miss it, and I still think about it a lot. And so this volunteer work is one of the things that I think keeps me and other veterans that are involved connected with that community. Service is important.
It is. And we've said on here as well before, for a lot of the guys, I know when we got out, you lose that sense of purpose. And so whatever it is that you can find that's good, yeah, we don't promote doing crimes or anything on here, but you can find that good sense of purpose. It really does. It helps out tremendously, even for your own mental health and mental well-being.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we say that we're honoring these veterans today, the ones that we honor. For of course, we're honoring them as individuals, but we're also honoring those that served before them, because we're honoring the whole idea of service by saying that if you served in the United States military in uniform, you're owed this respect, you're owed this dignity until the very end. You shouldn't be alone. You should be recognized and honored one more time while you're living. And so that's what we're all about. And we say to them that, by doing this kind of service for you as a veteran is on your last patrol, we feel like the signal that gives to the community is something that encourages service more broadly. Because if you think about young people that are, thinking, well, maybe I should or shouldn't go in the military, if they hear that somebody who's 85 years old that was served 40 years ago and today he's dying, but that long after service, there's still members of the community that would come in there and thank him one more time. That shows that young person, how important service is and how powerful it is among the community of people that have served. And so it's for those that have served today, some that have served in the past, and we think those that may serve in the future.
Speaking about generational service, and this is actually honestly, to be fully transparent, something I'd never really thought about, at least on a deep level, until preparing for our chat here today. What do you think it is that bonds those of us who served in different eras, different wars, and even different branches?
I think it's the continuity of service at large. We tend to be more patriotic people. We tend to be of the feeling that the country deserves protection, and to protect it, you have to have people in the service. And then we have those shared experiences. The training that's similar, the locations that are similar, the experiences that are similar. Combat's different places, but a lot of the experiences are similar. So it's that commonality of service, shared experiences. It's not just true for the military. Firefighters, for instance, what they're doing is a common theme, a common effort, and they have this brotherhood of their own. But the military, being a larger organization, being historically more founded in the country and the history of what we've done and all the wars that we've had and the conflicts that America has faced, service is kind of it's a continuum, as you say. It's a very important part of it, and we do it because we feel it's important to do, and then we like to take care of each other, I believe, because we've been there together.
Yeah, I've always kind of, I guess we're getting close to that point in life, Neil, where we're going to become, we already are, but we're not, we still got some time. I think we become those older veterans, and I don't know. You got the Vietnam era, in my opinion. Those veterans did so much. They started veteran centers where we can go and we can talk, and they were very huge presence with the Patriot Guard. I'm sure that a lot of people today wouldn't even know what the hell Westboro Baptist Church is if you said it, and the things that they did. And so our Vietnam veterans, it's such an interesting relationship, how we look at them and everything that they did, especially being drafted, being called to go do it. And then even after everything that they went through, they could have came home and been like, screw this place, screw this country, so on and so forth. And to stand up for this new generation. And fortunately, thank goodness, we haven't really been in a position like that, where our generation, the GWAT vets, have got to go. So I think it puts even a greater emphasis on what Veterans Last Patrol is doing, because we don't really have young kids coming home from war right now, thank God. So really put time, energy, effort, and focus into the guys that came before us, the ones that are out there without anybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, the Vietnam generation now, because of their age group, is the largest, overall population that you're going to find in hospice care and in senior living, places like that. And exactly because of what you say, Mike, many of them did not get the due respect and the gratitude that so many of us did get in our era. So those guys, more than anyone, I think, need to be appropriately thanked before they pass from the scene. And so we work with some organizations like the Vietnam Veterans of America Association, and that's the VVA and VVA chapters and folks like that, to try to bring special attention to them. There is such a thing as the Vietnam Veteran 50th anniversary pin from the war. So, we'll present something like that as part of the honor ceremony as well, if we know they are a Vietnam veteran. And those guys especially, they deserve everything that we can give them in their last patrol.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And like I said, whenever it's one of those crazy things that you don't think about it. And then, thank God I ran into those guys in Boca, and Wow, this makes sense. This is incredible. Like, you know, you don't even think about it, but then here we are, and you guys are doing it. So
Yeah, it's something that, again, a lot of people aren't aware of it. I mean, if someone had a senior family member that maybe was in assisted living, they may have had some experience with it. But a lot of people also don't realize that it's possible to volunteer in this field. They think that that's not possible, and it is. So that's what we're trying to seek is more volunteers. And one point that I would add from our conversation is, it's not only the elderly. Sometimes young people go into hospice care. Like we had an Army captain just a few weeks ago that had a terminal illness. He was still in active duty, but we were contacted about that, and we went up and did a ceremony for him along with his unit members because his unit, of course, was still involved. And we've had some other cases similar to that. So, it generally is in the elderly community, but not always.
yeah, I mean, definitely a great point. And how you were discussing on the volunteering. So with everybody who joins us, we always make sure there's the appropriate links to be able to reach out and get in touch with y'all here in the descriptions. What's the just so because God knows people are horrible at reading descriptions.
Yeah. Best
So
thing to do is go to our website, veteranlastpatrol.org. Veteranlastpatrol.org. If you go there, there's quite a bit of information on our website. We've got a contact tab there. That's how we get most of our leads, is people will find us through social media or word of mouth or some veteran outreach that we do. And they'll go to our website, veteranlastpatrol.org. And then they'll contact us that way. Of course, they can also call us. We have a phone number out there on the website as well.
yep.
But we'll talk to them. We'll kind of tell them a little bit more about the mission and what it requires, how to get involved. And then typically what we're doing is we're referring folks to the hospice care provider, one of the hospice care providers that's in their geographical area. Because hospice is a full program. There's also medical care going on. There's counseling going on. There's palliative care happening. So our focus is just the volunteer and friendship and companionship part of that, our mission, befriend, honor, and support. So we don't do the medical care. You don't have to be doing any of that. You just have to be willing to volunteer. And typically a volunteer may go an hour a week to visit someone. So it's not very time extensive. And of course, it's very flexible because you pretty much go on your own time. It could be in the evenings, could be weekends. And so it's quite flexible. It is a little bit of a process to get onboarded and started because since it's a medical field, you've got the HIPAA rules, you've got privacy issues, you've got some paperwork, some training that you do have to go through. That's generally done state by state in the hospice where you would be volunteering for. But we kind of do that setup, and we're more than anything, we're kind of a recruiting and motivating organization to get more veterans to do this type of volunteer work. And then we partner with communities in the hospices that actually work in those communities.
So I think if someone was interested in volunteering, the befriending, honoring is pretty clear cut what those experiences look like. Is there something specific or maybe just a handful of things that you're looking for from a support aspect? Because as you said, maybe some end of life wishes, different things of that nature. Is there kind of some area where maybe you've tried to you've worked towards making something happen and maybe could use a little bit more support on the support side of
Yeah,
things?
yeah. Well, of course, we're a 501c nonprofit, so we are a financial entity. We do seek donations, so part of it's just financial contributions. Some we get private donations. We get some grants that people tell us about and we apply for. We also have a merchandise page on our website that people can buy Last Patrol themed merchandise. And so that's one thing, of course, financial support. We also have a big card program, a couple of different card programs actually. So if you don't feel like you're someone volunteer, but you want to get involved and just sending a message of joy and gratitude, you can write a card. So we get a lot of cards. Children cards are especially popular, where they say, "Dear veteran, thank you for your service. My father was a Marine, but I want to say thank you to you. They'll write a card like that, and they'll send us those cards, and then we put those cards in packets that we call cards of gratitude packets, which we deliver to the veterans in the facilities where we visit them. We have a last wish element. That's kind of particular to the circumstances, so it really is somewhat hard to support unless somebody's on the scene. We had one, for instance, and maybe I shared that in my video, where there was a gentleman who'd been a lifetime trout fisherman. He wanted to go fishing one more time, so we contacted a local fishing guide and got him down in the river one more time to fish for trout. And we've had other cases where people, wanted to see a horse one more time, or they wanted to. Somebody wanted a national anthem sung to them live one more time. So sometimes the wishes are quite small. Sometimes they can be extensive, and of course, many times we can't do them because maybe the health situation of the individual doesn't allow it. But when we do have a request like that, we'll try to reach out to people that may be able to help. We've had some with pets. A lot of people have pets, and if you're alone and you're dying, the question is, what am I going to do with my pets? So helping with things like that, we've done before. We've also gotten involved with home repairs, things like that for hospice cases in home. It's sad to say, but some veterans live in some pretty desperate places, so they may need some service with their AC system or something. And, those things aren't covered by the hospice care provider. So sometimes we can step in and help them with things like that.
Yeah, that's truly incredible. So for everybody that's watching, listening, if there's anything that hey, maybe they could use this, or like something that popped out to me, just someone's like, hey, here's a grant, just even knowledge, right? Just a piece of knowledge, a piece of information to share that can actually be incredibly beneficial and helpful to supporting the mission of Veterans Last Patrol.
Absolutely. Something else that it's a good outreach event that you may not be aware of, and probably some of your listeners are motorcycle riders or classic car enthusiasts. So we have a big event every year. We call it an annual honor ride. So we're looking for car clubs and bike organizations to join us on a national honor ride for veterans each year. And what that ride does is it visits senior care communities, senior care facilities, in the geographic area where the group is located. So if you're in, Fort Lauderdale, for instance, and you're connected to a group that likes to ride and likes to support veterans, we can help that event come about, where we would help you get some facilities to visit. We make posters for the event, and the organization sponsor gets their logos on the poster. We make T-shirts for the event. So these kind of groups, I'm sure some of your listeners may be involved with bike and car clubs. And if you are, and you think your organization might want to support, veterans on their last patrol, they should reach out to us.
Yeah, we all listen, even if you're not involved in a biker, you know somebody, because as soon as you brought that up, I've got a Marine that I served with in 3-6 in Afghanistan. He's with a group around the West Palm area. And then I got really one of my best friends he was an Army Ranger, and he's with a group in like the Okeechobee area. So he rides, like a lot of them are veterans. So for sure, I mean, everyone listening, as soon as you said motorcycle, bike, we all know guys who ride, and definitely going to be sharing this with them when we get off of this podcast.
Yeah, what happens is the ride group will usually each group will go to about 3 facilities.
Yeah.
Stop there, you show the residents your bikes or cars, spend some fellowship time there. The riders all sign this poster I was talking about, and then the poster gets presented to the facility. Oftentimes they'll hang it up inside the facility. And it's just another way to honor and bring some recognition to these folks in these facilities. Those veterans in those facilities, many of them were riders or car people with themselves, and they can't do it anymore now. They can't leave anymore now. So we try to bring the bike event to them.
Yeah, that's genuinely awesome. That's such an incredible idea. It really is great.
That's usually in the fall of every year. Well, let me put it like this. We schedule the annual event this year. I think it's September the 19th. But sometimes, like Florida, for instance, some of those folks In the past years, they thought it was a little too hot then, so they wanted to do it like in January or whatever. So it doesn't have to be on the annual day, but we try to get as many to go that day as we can. I think last year we had 9 states involved with at least one group, and so we're hoping to grow that every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about these bikers, man. I'm pretty sure, this kind of goes into the question I had for your organization, Claude. Bikers will ride anywhere, man. You can call them up from Maine; they'll travel to New Mexico. They'll ride all the way down that way. Um, but that being said, do you canvass the U.S. pretty well? Are you guys everywhere, or pretty? It's
Well,
just
the
pretty.
nonprofit right now, we have volunteers in 40 states, and that's it may
Oh
be just
wow.
1 or 2 people in some states. But this bike event can take place anywhere. It typically takes place in the community where the group is involved because the reason we're doing this is not so much to have a long cross country ride. The idea is to visit as many places and see as many veterans as we can.
Hmm.
So we encourage them to do the ride to facilities that are near their, wherever they're based out of. And so that can be done anywhere. There's a group. If it's, wherever they are, we would talk to them about how to get that organized and help them get it organized. And but you're absolutely right. A lot of veterans are interested in that. And this year, as I said, the annual event is the 19th of September, and and it's not just bikes. If you have any connections, anyone that's one of your listeners have a connection to car clubs, those are pretty cool too. Some of these classic car clubs and other things like that, they like to show their vehicles off. And once again, let me add this point: it's not just, of course, the veterans in those facilities that come out to see the bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes some of the groups will go to a veteran's home, which those exist, and we can service those. But a lot of times, folks are in hospice and facilities are just communities across America. So they may have 10 veterans in the facility, but they may have 30 or 40 other people that are going to come out and see the bikes.
Everyone's going to enjoy something like that. Just
Yeah.
a group of people coming, visiting. That that's I want to say that my sister-in-law ran a assisted like memory care, long-term memory care assisted living facility. She was the administrator, and they kind of threw together. They got some classic cars, some things
Yeah.
from the 50s, the 60s, and it didn't matter if you were a car person or not. They all came out. I think there was some barbecue, there was sunshine, and they all just got to enjoy people showing up because you might have somebody there at that facility that's not a veteran and they don't have any family that ever comes visit them. So
Right. Right.
Hmm.
hell, I mean it's going
Yeah.
even beyond our community, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we serve the nation. We didn't just serve each other. So we want to help the community. And I think you know interesting you say that because we have another program called an Adopt a Care Facility program, which is kind of a corollary to our hospice mission. So sometimes we if someone's interested, we'll tell them, hey, there's a senior care facility down the road from you, very close. Why don't you make it an effort to go there periodically, see if they have any veterans. And sometimes they do more. Sometimes they may have a monthly veteran coffee inside one of those places. They
Dude.
may have they may help get entertainment because when you asked that question, I was thinking about a lot of those facilities. They're always looking for things for their residents. So it could be a music group, could be a comedian. They try to bring different entertainment inside of the facility for the senior folks because they typically don't get out very much. So veterans can help do those kind of things too.
You know them events, they do them down here all the time, like at malls and stuff, like cars and coffee. We should be doing that at assisted care facilities that have veterans, like a veterans cars and coffee once a month or something. Pull in with the cars, have I don't know what they do, but like little box of Dunkin' Donuts or something.
Yeah,
Dunkin', you can sponsor us if you want. um,
yeah, that's very true. That's very true. That's all. That's why if your listeners can help us, we'd be very grateful. It's all about finding someone that has connections to those groups. Because a lot of times they have a calendar and you got to get into it ahead of time. Because they got to plan their stuff, and so it's all about connections and folks that lead organizations and like that to get them to be involved. But yeah, what you're talking about would be a great thing to do.
Well, that's the beautiful thing when we end up meeting individuals like yourself that have done something. It's meaningful, it's impactful, and then you start to have these conversations. It's just one of those. It's almost like a no-brainer. It's so simple to do. Why aren't we doing it? And then you start thinking about all the other things that you can do in addition. It's so simple. And not to take away from, like, I know running a nonprofit is not simple. So not to diminish anything there or take away from, I know, all the work that y'all do, but just the idea, the concept, helping another person is so simple. The premise of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is, and that's why we feel like it's an issue that can be addressed. We can solve this problem. We can reduce veteran loneliness, and we're focused on the senior care population primarily. Like I said, there are exceptions, but veteran loneliness is a big part of the suicide problem and other things. So we're trying to keep veterans engaged with each other. And in our case, it's senior life care. It's primarily seniors, and it's end of life care. And it's actually just listening, just being there for somebody. You're not, there are a lot of great veterans groups out there, but some of them, require particular skills. In this case, you don't really require a lot of skill. You just got to sit there and talk and listen.
So who are the 10 states? Let's call them out. I want to know, what are the 10 states that we don't have anybody?
Oh boy, I'd have to pull up my database on that and check. I know it's mostly out west, some of those mountain states like Utah, Idaho, those more sparsely populated states. I think we may not have anybody in Maine. I think the Dakotas. So most of those more sparsely populated states out west. And part of the problem there is stuff's way spread out. So
Right.
when I say that you have a nursing home in most communities in America, out there the communities are far away. So if you're living somewhere, the nearest care facility might be 50, 60 miles, and so that's far. But we can find ways to cover those areas. So that's why I say wherever you live, we'll see if we can help get you connected to hospice. And if you can't do one-on-one volunteering, we've got these other things that you might be involved in, whether it's a ride, whether it's writing cards, whether it's we also something interesting that we just started that your listeners would probably be interested in too is we just did our first annual clay shooting tournament.
Okay.
So we're thinking about doing an annual shoot event of some kind, call it an honor shoot or something. So it could be handguns, it could be skeet or clay, could be some other ways to shoot. And so same thing applies if you're, those were the bike groups, but let's say you got somebody that's in a hunting club or a hunting lodge or that's listening to this program or is a big shooter, part of a shooting range somewhere. And they like the idea of helping organize a shoot for their fellow veterans that are on their last patrol. We'd love to talk to them. So please reach out to us.
Absolutely. And we're going to, whenever I edit this thing, get this thing ready to launch, we're going to find out those 10 states. We're going to do a call to action, get everybody fired up, get somebody. Well, there's somebody listening. We got enough people. There's somebody who's listening that are in those states.
Yeah. It's, we hope to have folks everywhere at some point. We get volunteers, through social media primarily, but also through networking with other veterans groups. So, if somebody's in the American Legion, let's say, or some other organization out there in Utah, and they're hearing this program, and then a lot of times, you go as a team if you can. You may visit individually volunteering, but when we do these ceremonies, we like to have a team. So sometimes there may be an individual who himself is a volunteer with us, but then when he's after visited 3 or 4 times, maybe his person in hospice, and he says, okay, I want to go honor him now. I want to do these gift presentations. Then he might ask some of his veteran buddies or something to come with him. And by coming to one of these ceremonies, it tends to magnify the importance of these things for the broader veteran community, and then other people may want to volunteer individually.
So I'd like to ask for We do have a lot of veterans. For a lot of the veterans watching this right now, especially any of them that feel disconnected or forgotten, isolated, what do you want them to hear from someone who has walked beside warriors on their final patrol?
I would remind them of the brotherhood of service. We served together. You got reinforcement out of your battle buddy. You learn from the people you serve with. Maybe you sacrificed for them. And now you've gotten the call. You've heard that there are people out there dying, and that they're alone. And maybe they've fallen out of the veterans community. And you can serve them. You can continue to give back. You can pass it forward, as we say, right? You can pass it forward. And we're just asking you to be there for them. We're not asking you to physically care for them. We're asking you to be a companion and be a battle buddy, a wingman, a ship mate. That's what we're asking. And you wouldn't want to be alone yourself when that time comes. So you don't want your fellow veterans today to be alone. And I believe you would enjoy it if you choose to volunteer with us. You'll enjoy it. You'll be rewarded by it, and particularly if you like, hearing about other service stories. If you like history, if you like, just hearing the details of what somebody else did, you would find this, I think, rewarding.
I can only imagine. Just right before even you said stories, I just got thinking about like the stories that you've heard. There's got to be a ton of them.
Oh, there are. There's a lot of this. There's tons of them. And sometimes you got to get to know someone a little bit before they open up. But like I said a little while ago, a lot of times end of life care people are more open than they otherwise would be because they know it's their last shot. And typically they'll share things with you. A lot of times they're wonderful stories. I remember one guy, he was a World War II veteran. He'd been an LST operator in D-Day. So he went into the D-Day landing and for the Navy. And one of the neighboring LSTs got shot up as they were going into D-Day. And several of the crew members went in the water. So he jumped in the water and rescued another LST sailor. And they got to be really good friends after that. He'd saved his life. And then for 40 years after that rescue, the gentleman that he rescued always sent him on the anniversary a box of cigars. So just little, personal stories like that they'll share with you. And a lot of times, of course, they're emotional meetings. But usually when you leave, they're smiling and you're smiling.
Yeah, everybody has a story. Everybody has multiple stories, and they're great to hear. And I can imagine you've seen this. That I know we had the honor to be able to interview and sit down and talk with John Gleason, World War II veteran who recently just passed. And I remember after that interview talking with Tracy Neal.
Yeah.
And remember she was saying like he shared things with you guys I never heard before.
Yeah.
And I think that there's especially when another veteran comes, you said they're at the end of the life, it's their last chance to share. You might be the one, you might be the catalyst for them to be able to share a story, relive a memory, and just something they've carried with them their entire life, before they leave us.
Yeah. Very much. And that's when it's really nice to have the family involved, because then the family will, as you said, Mike, the family will maybe learn things that they didn't know because they didn't know how to ask the question. They didn't, their father, for instance, didn't open up to them the same way. I got one example there too. I was visiting a gentleman who had another World War II veteran, and he had dementia. So communicating with him was difficult. But his daughter was often there, and very appreciative that I would come, and she spent time sometimes listening to the conversation. But interestingly, every time I came, after a while, he would start talking in the limited way that he could still speak about construction. And, I didn't understand why he kept talking about construction. So this would happen a couple of times after several visits. And I would ask the daughter, did you guys recently do some remodeling in your house? Was there something that he saw recently that keeps construction on his mind? But he was not able to articulate it well enough why he was interested in it. But he knew I was a service, had been in the service. He knew I was a veteran visiting him, but he just had a hard time articulating it. But eventually I said, well, do you have a copy of this DD 214? And so she did. She brought out the 214, and I looked at it and read over it, and I was able to determine that he had been at Fort Bliss after the war, had gone to Fort Bliss, and that he had been working in construction. And I did some research, and I saw that they did a major expansion at that time at the base. And so we were able to determine basically that, after he came back from the war, for the remaining time he was in the service, he was working in the expansion there on the post and construction. And somehow his mind was working at that time. He remembered, he associated me, with military construction. And of course, his daughter, obviously she wouldn't know how to read a DD 214, didn't know anything about this, didn't really know how to do the research to find out a couple extra details. And I was able to do that because I was there and had gotten to know him. And, we were able to tease out the little part of our dad's story that she didn't know.
Yeah, and that, gosh, I mean, it's just that one. It to some people it might not seem big, but just being able to have another memory about something that your loved one did experience, especially during like military service, just learning out a little bit something extra about a loved one, before they leave us.
Absolutely.
It's super cool. What you guys are doing is incredible.
It is. It really
Families
is.
are really grateful too. You talked about John Gleason. We just had another World War II veteran up in Philadelphia. He was, I think, the last, or certainly one of the last Army medics from the Battle of the Bulge. He served in the Battle of the Bulge, and he was gone in a hospice. So we got a few volunteers up there that went and visited him and did an honor ceremony for him. And he'd been like isolated in his room for a couple of weeks, didn't really get out. But he came downstairs for this event. He was able to get downstairs. And they said he was smiling and happy the whole time. And then a couple of days ago, he also passed away. And a couple of days ago, we got a note from his grandson that said, I'm so grateful for you guys coming. It's such a memorable event for my grandfather. I hadn't seen him that happy for a long time. Thank you and the volunteers so much for what you did. So, notes like that from the family just shows you how much this type of volunteer work means.
It's truly incredible that just when you take some time, it doesn't have to be a lot, just to talk with someone or listen to them, that can make their day. And I've had handful of experiences with things like that where you just talk to someone. And I had this older gentleman I ran into at the VA last month, and I actually recognized them from a cruise.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I got to talking with them, and I remembered some of their stories and everything, and he just had the biggest smile. He didn't really say much. Like I think he had trouble, but his wife, she's like, thank you for stopping and talking with us. Like she's like, you made his day, so, and it was like a 30 to 60 second exchange.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's little acts of gratitude can go a long way. And, like you just described, just being there for somebody is, half the battle. You don't even have to say a lot. Just you're there. By being there, they know you're interested in them and you care about them. And so it's that's what we're there for. It's not just verbalizing things. It's just being there.
Showing up.
Yeah.
Care enough to show up.
Now it's showing up. Yeah.
That's it.
Shows you got genuine interest and care. I'd imagine for a lot of those guys, it must feel like a giant exhale in a way. It's like, oh man, I'm finally able to. I feel so good about this. Somebody here wants to hear me out. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
it definitely perks them up. You get in all kind of circumstances. Sometimes people, they're not able to speak anymore. So then you have to kind of adapt and overcome. Maybe a volunteer might read something to them. I had a guy one time who was not able to communicate very well anymore, but he had been. This is a Vietnam veteran. He'd been on the Enterprise aircraft carrier, I believe it was, as a Navy sailor, and so he could talk a little bit. He could hear some. So what I ended up doing is his daughter in that case told me that he really loved the Enterprise. Always, liked to talk about the ship. He even had a big, probably about a 3 foot long model of the Enterprise up on his bed stand, and so I got a book on the Enterprise, and I went in there and would just kind of go through and show him pictures of the book and point out things, and sometimes he would signal something to me that this was he remembered that part of the ship, or his ship, he was doing this at that time or whatever. So pictures can also be very powerful communication tools. Music is something else. They say actually that the one of the last things that a lot of people lose when they are dying is their hearing. Even though we think of people, not having hearing as they get older, but
It's like
sometimes
it's the first thing every veteran loses, right?
yeah. But sometimes it's not that way. So we had another guy that one of our volunteers was visiting, and he couldn't speak anymore. So he couldn't really have a conversation. But he enjoyed Christian music, this gentleman, and he could still sing when you'd play music for him. So as I said, couldn't talk, couldn't have a conversation, but somehow the way his mind worked at that point, he was able to sing when he played music. So the volunteer would go in there and play some Christian music for him, and just get him to smile from being able to sing to those songs.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
really just a question of imagination. Whatever we learn about it, agility and adapting and overcoming. So you get in a situation with a veteran that's in hospice, and you'll find a way. You'll find a way to get to the objective.
Figure it out.
Hmm.
Well, we truly do appreciate you coming and talking with us and educating us and our family here. More about what you're doing. It's truly powerful, truly impactful. And is there anything that maybe I didn't ask, or something that you just really wanted to drive home here?
I think you covered it pretty well, Mike. There are three major events: our honor ride, which we talked about, our card programs, and our clay tournament shoot. So those three things. Any of your listeners want to get more involved with those? As I said, we can volunteer anywhere you are because it's not specifically related. Sometimes people say, "Well, I'm not close to a VA facility," but this is something totally different. You don't have to be close to a VA facility because hospice takes place. Hospice for veterans takes place in any community, or just about every community across America. People ask, "Do you have to be a veteran?" And I answered that you don't have to be a veteran. And there's, best thing to do is just reach out to us on the website if you're interested in learning more, and we'll be happy to talk to you about what the expectations are and how to get more involved.
We appreciate it.
Very much.
Tails family, if you got questions, if you need to be contacted, because people are horrible at follow through, it's just true. Sometimes I am as well, even though we have the website. Just drop the comment, drop the question here. We'll make sure we make sure everybody get in touch, and we will make the website as easy as possible. And we have your Facebook page and your socials. We'll drop all of those in here as well, so people can go and follow what you're doing. I think there's a couple things that the ride is one of them. Like, you have your main page, and then there's the ride. Like, I just kind of follow everything that you guys do, so it makes it easy. That way I don't miss anything. Oh,
Please do. And any questions you have, just reach out to us. And like I said, once you get the podcast links out there, just let me know and we'll get it posted on our stuff.
yes, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So,
Thanks so
Claude,
much.
thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Claude.
for your time being here, your information, and all that you do. And for our family out there, we love you all. Until next time, Semper Fi.